I'd like to call the council meeting to order.
This meeting will also be conducted by audio and video conference without the requirement of a physically present quorum of the Rock Island City Council due to the disaster declaration issued by Governor Pritzker. Because of this order related to COVID-19 health concerns affecting the state and the city, the mayor has determined that an in-person meeting at City Hall with all participants may not be practical or prudent. Alderpersons and staff may not all be physically present at City Hall due to the disaster, and physical attendance at City Hall may be limited. To participate remotely during the public comment or public hearing portion of this meeting, please join by phone at 1-385-393-5122, PIN 260-593-462#.
Thank you very much. Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Present.
Hurt.
Here.
Gilbert.
Present.
Swanson.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Poulos.
Here.
Healy. And Mayor Tomes.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. If we could raise for the Pledge of Allegiance and also remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Public comment. Public comments. Thank you, sir. All right, we have a few here. Kathleen. There we go. Come on forward, please.
My name is Kathleen Dennison, and I live at 1511 6th Avenue, Rock Island. And I'd like to thank the City Council for considering my request to be withdrawn from the SSA. Thank you.
Thank you. George Kraus.
Good evening. My name is George Kraus. I live here. I'm probably one of the few people in this room who lives close enough to this area that I can comfortably walk here in flip-flops in November. And I just want to make it known that I support the SSA.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Brandy.
I was going for short and sweet, but I think he might have just beat me. My name is Brandy Vandewally. My husband, John, and I live at 520 18th Street, Rock Island, where we also own and operate Skeleton Key Art and Antiques. We are here in support of the SSA. There's not a whole lot more I feel like I need to say. I've spoken before you on another occasion, but through this whole process, I would like to say we remain unchanged in our support and hope that this SSA first vote passes tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Keim.
John Keim, owner of Huckleberry's Pizza, downtown Rock Island, resident for 25 years, owner of the restaurant for 30 years, and property owner. I would like to say again, continuous support for the SSA. I believe my $3 and some odd cents a day will go to good use down here to be part of this greater downtown. And the $1.20 maybe of the overhead for personnel and property management is an easy one, smart one. It's not just going to help me, it's going to help my neighbors. I'm in support and continue support of the SSA. Thank you.
Thank you. Daryl. I think I saw Daryl, yep.
Hi, Daryl Lempen, president of Gas and Electric Credit Union, 2300 4th Avenue, downtown Rock Island. I'm also here just to express our support on behalf of the credit union for the establishment of the SSA. I think it is the best channel going forward to improve the downtown and bring it back to where it once was. So has our full support. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Tamara Feldman.
I am here to speak to agenda item 21. Will it be possible to make comments when that comes up?
You could, we weren't going to, so now would be probably more appropriate.
Good evening. My name is Tamara Felden. I'm a resident of Rock Island, and I would like to comment on an item that's on the agenda today, namely the ordinance that, if approved, will give subpoena power to the Rock Island Human Rights Commission. I'm a member of the commission, and I would like to comment on both a reason for having such a commission locally and what the authority of such a commission should be, because I think those are related. But I want to be clear that I'm speaking strictly for myself. I'm not here speaking for the commission on behalf of the commission, so these comments are strictly my own. Rock Island is the most diverse of the Quad Cities, with a population of more than 20% Black, and more than 20% of Rock Islanders live in poverty. And of course, these are not numbers that are new to you. You're well familiar with that. Impoverished minority populations are the most likely to be discriminated in a range of circumstances, in part because violators are aware that such individuals have relatively few options in their defense. Other venues, such as the Illinois State Human Rights Commission, or the ACLU, require steps that can seem intimidating and of little promise, especially when a complainant needs an urgent resolution. I believe that the Rock Island Human Rights Commission has a very important role to play. It is readily accessible through venues that residents trust, such as the MLK Center. Members are well-versed in the local conditions a complainant might encounter. A longtime resident aware of local institutions and resources, a member brings important context and knowledge to a case. Because of what our local Human Rights Commission has to offer, complaints can often be resolved through mediation with relatively little acrimony and with workable outcomes for all. Having a local Human Rights Commission is essential for those who realistically don't have other options. But what can the commission actually do? When a complaint results from conflict where the parties by themselves could not come to a resolution, but they simply want to get on with things and respond well to attempts at mediation, that's relatively straightforward. Those cases are the easiest part of the commission's work. But there are situations that involve a different relationship between respondent and complainant, such as, for example, when someone files a complaint against their employer. As matters stand now, if the commission's initial review finds that the complaint has merit, then it chooses to investigate, it contacts the parties to gather additional information, and proceeds from there. If the employer against whom the complaint was filed chooses not to participate in the process, such as simply ignoring the commission, there is nothing the commission can do. In other words, as things stand now, it is potentially up to an alleged violator whether a case can move forward or not. Or to put that a little bit differently, it is up to alleged violators whether they allow themselves to be investigated or not. The commission seeks to serve social justice. It does not seek conflict, and it does not seek to escalate conflict. But it does indeed seek to serve social justice, and it seeks to do so by providing support for those of our residents who are most vulnerable. Not giving the commission the tools needed to do so effectively sends an important message. Not giving it such tools for fear of litigation says that there is probably discrimination in our community, but we don't want to address it. Not giving it such tools because the city fears a possible and most likely very minor budget impact when the city is spending more than $26 million in ARPA funding raises questions about priorities. Not giving it such tools because of dissatisfaction with the internal review process punishes vulnerable residents for the procedural inadequacies in place. So the question that I feel is before you today really is simple. In the city of Rock Island, do all residents deserve protection and support? I urge you to vote in favor of this ordinance today. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Hampton.
All right, you pulled my leg. I'll come speak. I'm a pastor. I'm always ready to speak, right? My name is Greg Hampton. I live at 2420 21st Avenue, Rock Island. And my wife grew up in Rock Island. I grew up in Moline. And so you grow up in Moline as a small child hearing rumors about Rock Island, about this, that, and the other thing. And then you grow up and you find out that most of it, if not all of it, was lies and exaggerations. And then you have your heart broken to come back to the Quad Cities and start a church in a city that your wife loves. And so then you begin to love, and then you realize that there's nowhere else that you would rather be. And then at a certain point, you get invited to consider whether you want to be on the Human Rights Commission. And you think, oh, I wonder what that's going to be. I wonder all the great things they'll be able to do. And from first day, about 4.5 years ago, during the Human Rights Commission, there was already discussions about why don't we have subpoena powers yet? And people around the table that had been on it for many, many, many more years had said, well, we had heard many years ago that the council was ready to give it to us, and then it kind of got kicked down the road a little bit. Got kicked down the road a little bit, got kicked down the road a little bit. And so here in the last couple of years, because we had a couple cases that really seemed like it would have benefited from us having subpoena powers, really caused us to go, I think it's time for us to actually take this seriously. And so we began drafting a new ordinance based on suggested ordinances from other cities our size with issues that we have from the lawyers in this city. And then it was like, all right, okay, there's some issues with that. And so then we just said, why don't we just let the lawyers completely draft it? Let them make sure that it's all legal, that it's copacetic, that it would work for our city. And then we had all that done. We had all the discussions. We had study sessions. And then even then, it seemed like there were questions that were causing it to get kicked down the road. And so we were just really eager to see if this is something that we can have as a city, so that the handful of times that issue comes up, that like Tamara said, it doesn't end up being the responsibility of a potential violator to decide whether it gets evaluated at all. We also said the last time we discussed this that I would prefer us not have to kick things like this to the state. I would love for us to be able to be good neighbors to our own neighbors, to have these discussions. And like Tamara said, we are one of the most diverse cities we have. We sit in a county. We are the county seat, Rock Island. The county is 10% African American, and our city is 20%, because our city, making up a very small percentage of the entire county, holds over half of all of the people of color in our county. That creates its own diversity, its own beauty, but it also creates its own challenges and opportunities for people to take advantage of people. We just want to be good neighbors. We want to make sure that it's fair for everybody. We want to make sure it's equitable. We want to make sure that we are a city that people look to and go, I want to be a part of that city, because this is something that in particular that they take seriously. And I hope that you can see that we take this seriously. And we want this to be the best Human Rights Commission in the Quad Cities, and we believe that this is something that can help with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thurgood Brooks.
Hello, everybody. How's it? Excuse me. How's it going? I too am a member of the Human Rights Commission, but I'm not coming to speak about that really. Although, as I almost called you Mark, Greg. I don't know why. Maybe because I haven't ate today. But although, as Greg said, when I joined this commission almost 5 years ago, that was a subpoena power issue. One of the first things that came up due to cases that we were hearing. And so, in short, I just want to express the need for your support behind the work that we've been doing, the work that the lawyers done behind this ordinance. And I firmly believe that this opportunity that you have before you in doing this will be the true service of what the Human Rights Commission is intended to do. And so I ask you to consider that. But why I'm here, I'm a resident of the First Ward here in Rock Island. And because of that fact, I also have MediaCom for internet services and those sort. And due to the fact that I live in the First Ward, although I don't have any problems with MediaCom, I'm left with no options in the country where we should have options behind where I can go. And before me, sure you can't see this, I'm sure it's privy to you all. I have a nice colorful map here that has purple And all the purple spaces is where the city council, probably not all of you who's sitting here, but at some point, I believe in 2018, voted to an agreement behind contract service with MetroNet. And as I look at this map, kind of bothers me. And I say that perhaps out of ignorance, and hopefully you all can help me with that. And why it bothers me is it seems as if an intentional draw, or I don't know what I'm trying to get at, but we're intentionally drawing out of services. And I'm looking at Alderperson Hurt, and him too. His entire ward is almost drawn out too from those services. All of Southwest Rock Island, and the bulk of what he has in the main part here, Rock Island, I guess you could say. I checked it out, Moses. Not all of First Ward is excluded. The only sliver that is not excluded happens to be the industrial parts of the First Ward. As we all know, or I would assume we know here, there aren't many residents in the First Ward that live in that area. And if we're talking about Alderperson Poulos, most of your ward is drawn out, if you didn't know. There's a sliver of Alderperson in Fifth Ward. But what am I getting at here? I'm getting at the problem of the fact that when you look at the First and Second Ward in particular, that has a high concentration of low income and people of color. Not to say that those two go hand in hand or has to be the same or be together, but I think we're all smart enough here to understand some discrepancies there, how that could be problematic. When low-income families continuously seem to be drawn out, put in spaces, kept in spaces, I should say, where they are monopolized and they don't have options. I myself and others in the First Ward, I haven't got to your ward yet, or Alderperson Hurt or Poulos, but I know people in the First Ward who, when calling to MetroNet to get the services, were told they could not get them. And now, after doing some research, I understand more why. And so what I'm asking you all, very respectfully, is helping me understand, first of all, why that was drawn like that, which may not be important. More importantly, what can we do to service all residents here in our city and give all residents in our city an option behind what is best behind their pocketbook as we sit here as the economy is going out how it is. How can we help them out? And I'm asking you all to do the job, and I'm willing to do whatever I can do behind addressing that. And once again, I hope you support the Human Rights Commission ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's everybody that signed up. Is there anybody virtual? Anybody virtual, public comment?
Yes, this is Rena Cohen. May I jump in? I'm an owner in the district.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, if you could give us your name also, then we couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear it.
Sure. So my name is Rena Cohen first, and I'm an owner, property owner. I own a condo at 1623 2nd Ave in Rock Island. And I just wanted to say that I'm in great support of the initiatives and the efforts for the SSA, and very excited about what Jack Cohen is doing. And I'd say really kind of getting out there and driving up support. I'm calling in from California, and I love Rock Island. My family is from Davenport. My brother-in-law is at the Rock Island Arsenal as a JAG officer, and I've always been a super fan of the area, and I wanted to buy into it and then really kind of celebrate the beauty of Rock Island with my friends and family. And I think there's so much interest in the city, so I'm very excited to see the efforts, and I fully support them. Please let me know if I can answer any questions. Otherwise, thanks for hearing me.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else virtual? Seeing none, we're going to move on. Item number 7.
Minutes from the August 24th, 2022 special city council meeting.
Move to approve the minutes as printed.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hertz.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item number 8.
Minutes from the October 17th, 2022 City Council Goal Setting and Budget Meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes as printed.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
And Healy.
Aye. Item number 9.
Minutes from the November 14th, 2022 Study Session and City Council Meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes as printed.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye. Item number 10.
Minutes from the November 14th, 2022 Closed Session.
Move to approve the closed session minutes.
Second.
Move to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
And Healy.
Aye. Item number 11, update Rock Island. Got a couple items here. Light up your holiday at the Quad City Botanical Center. The 6th annual Winter Nights, Winter Lights, a spectacular display of more than 160,000 lights, is going on now at the Botanical Center. Stroll through the magical gardens at night and visit the outdoor events in the canopy for hot chocolate and purchase by Rostox. Provide some comfort this holiday season. The Rock Island Public Library is collecting comfort items for Heart of Hope's ministry and Rock Island High School's Rocky Resource Room, which helps support teenagers in need of basic items. Donations of household supplies or personnel care items can be dropped off at any Rock Island Public Library location. Deck the Downtowns. Downtown Rock Island, in partnership with the Downtown Davenport Partnership and the Downtown Bettendorf Organization, presents Deck the Downtowns, a series of holiday promotions encouraging people to eat, drink, shop, and be merry downtown. All 3 downtowns will host a scavenger hunt for a holiday ornament in businesses now through January 1st. In Rock Island, search for the red holiday train ornament at more than 40 downtown businesses. The custom train ornaments were created by Crawford Company and decorated by Jackson Auto Body Custom Paints. Find 10 holiday trains and turn in the completed card at the Rock Island Library, Quad City Arts, or the Quad City Botanical Center and win the custom train ornament for your own tree. Participants will also be entered into win a gift certificate and a grand prize basket. Visit downtownrockisland.org or Downtown Rock Island social media this week for a list of participating businesses. Winter in Bloom at the Hallberg Estate. The annual holiday open house is this Sunday, December 4th, from noon to 5 p.m. at the Hallberg Estate, 1300 24th Street, Rock Island. Come see the beautifully decorated mansion, enjoy horse-drawn carriage rides, and visit with Santa. The event is free and open to the public. Cookies and cocoa will be provided. That's it. Thank you. Item number 12.
Presentation of the Financial Management Report for the third quarter, 2022.
Right. Okay, good evening again, everyone. I'm here to present the management report for September 30th, 2022. The benchmark for this third quarter is 75%. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time because last Monday we did go over a lot of this, so I know the agenda is full, so just going to kind of summarize what we have here. Okay, so we're going to start with the revenues, expenditure, and net position report. This basically provides budget and actuals for revenues in the first 2 columns. The middle column shows the budget and expenditures for budget and actuals for expenditures, and then the last 3 columns is net position, again budget, actual, and cash available. So we do have close to 40 funds, and I'm not going to go through, like I said, every single one, just going to give a summary of a few of them. First one is the general fund. So the revenue is reported at 80% of the budget as of this reporting period. Expenditures, which is below, are reported at 68% of the targeted benchmark. The majority of city departments are reflected in the general fund. Next on that page, we do have the American Rescue Plan Act. This fund was, of course, created to track expenditures related to the disbursement from the federal government. As of September 30th, $2.4 million had been expended. The majority of that was a transfer of some of the revenue replacement to the general fund. Okay, the next couple of charts, we will look at some of the special revenue. The first one on there is Riverboat Gaming. Revenue is reported at 69%, while expenditures below are at 28% of the targeted benchmark. Projected revenue is expected to slightly surpass the budgeted amount. Expenses are below the target due to timing of debt payments and transfers. Next, we have the capital projects and street funds. This includes the Capital Improvement Project Fund, which is supported by motor fuel tax, and the Street Fund, which is supported by the gasoline and diesel tax. Revenues were at 60% of budget, while expenditures were at 2% due to pending projects. And we also have the Motor Fuel Tax Fund, which is used to account for revenue from the state gasoline and expenses related to approved motor fuel tax projects. Revenue is reported at 69% of the benchmark for the second or third quarter. Budgeted expenditures include a year-end transfer to the general fund and the amount of $1.4 million, and a transfer to the Capital Improvement Fund and the amount of a little over $1 million. Okay, also included is Community Economic Development Fund. This is used to account for contributions and grants which support various special economic development activities. Revenue is currently reported at 56%, the majority representing monthly transfers from the general fund. In the past, this was supported by Gaming Fund. Expenditures are at 52% during this 6-month period. And we also have on that page the Debt Service Fund, and this pays for general obligation debt for non-enterprise funds with transfers from the Gaming Fund. The interest is due in June, and then the interest and principal are due in December. So the revenues are at 30%, and expenditures are reported at 28%. Then we're going to look at some of our what's called enterprise funds. One of the first ones, or the first three on here, are related to utilities. That would be water, wastewater, stormwater, and we don't have solid waste on there, but that's a fourth one. So the revenues are near the target benchmark at 75%, as you can see. Expenses for water, wastewater, and stormwater are trending below the benchmark for the 6-month period. And we also have the Parks Fund. For the 9 months, this is at 79% of the budget. 35% of budgeted revenue comes from property tax. Expenses are being reported at 65% of the budget due to the timing of projects. Right, and we are going to skip on over. And these particular charts just looks at the revenues over expenditures. Okay. Find the right page here. Okay, so next we're going to look at state and local tax revenue analysis. Okay, so the first chart is income tax. So the income tax is budgeted at $4.2 million for CY22. which is close to the 5-year average. Revenue recorded for this 9-month period total about $4.8 million, and the projected annual revenue is close to $6 million. Next, we have the replacement tax, also known as the personal property replacement tax. Revenue is reported at 183% of the budget through September 30th, and the annual projection is $8.18 million. And I know Alderman Parker had asked the other day about why are we receiving so much for this particular tax, and I did find my notes on that. So I just wanted to give some information on that. And this is from the Illinois Municipal League. So one of the reasons for the increase is that there was a change in how the tax payments were being made. Previously, it was once a year, and then it changed to quarterly estimated payments. So that was one of the reasons. Another reason was that, mentioned here, is that it reflects an improving economy generating exceptionally high corporate earnings and profits. And in addition to that, there was like an additional boost of $156 million of transfers in from the refund fund through the state. So just a number of reasons why that revenue is really coming in at the high rate that it's been coming in. Right. Okay, so the next two charts, the one here is sales tax. So the sales tax revenue is reported at 91% of the budget. The annual projection is about $3.5 million. And then the next one is the local option sales tax. That's reporting at about 98%. The annual projection is expected to be higher than the budget. And then we have the use tax for this 9-month period is on target at 75% of the benchmark. The annual projection is slightly below the annual budget. And then the municipal utility tax revenue is recorded for this period at 103% of the total budget, with an expected annual receipt above $2 million. Followed by that, we have the telecommunication tax revenue at about 67% of budget, with an annual projection slightly below budget. And then we have our local food and beverage tax, which is below the targeted benchmark, or slightly higher than the targeted benchmark at 78%. And then projections are also slightly higher. And then we finish off with our gaming tax. Revenue is on target, or slightly above target at 78%, with an annual projections also slightly higher than the budget. And then we close out with some information about our cash and investments. As of September 30th, the city had a total of $67.5 million in cash and investments. So that is all that I have.
Anybody have questions?
I just get real nervous when the state says we have higher revenue than expected. They're gonna come out, "Oop, we made an accounting error, give us that money back."
Or will it, how, next year or the year after, is, you know?
I would like to remind people, based on something that you kind of joked about with people going to Iowa to get gas.
Yeah.
So gas is coming down, so it would be really nice if everybody who went to Iowa would come back to Rock Island and buy your gas here, because then that helps your roads.
And schools.
And schools, yes.
That's correct. All right. I'm going to need to deviate just for a second. I'm going to go back to public comment. There was an individual who's having technical problem virtual, so I would like to have that person have an opportunity to speak. Are you there? Person there that wishes to speak virtually?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming back and reopening. My name is John Remus. I'm one of the co-owners of the Law Center. We're located at 329 18th Street. We're currently where Mr. Jack Cullen is officing, so I've had the opportunity or the privilege of Probably listening to him drone on more about the proposed SSA than the council members have. But we're fully, me and my partner, we're fully in support of the SSA and everything that Jack and his group are doing. So that was really all I wanted to say. Appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No
All right.
worries.
Item 13.
An ordinance regarding a request to install four-way stop signs on 26th Street at the intersection of 16th Avenue. And I just want to let council know this was the one that was recommended to deny on the previous council meeting per the traffic and engineering request. Alderperson Parker made a motion and it passed 7-0. However, because the motion wasn't made to consider, I wanted to put that on there just to make sure that we had our ducks in the row and we're making the correct motion. So you guys can suspend the rules or you can bring it back at the next council meeting. But
Move to consider suspend the rules and pass the ordinance.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Item 14.
An ordinance regarding a second amendment to the LRC Developers, Inc. redevelopment agreement at the Quad Cities Industrial Center, QCIC, property, second reading.
Move to pass the ordinance.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
And Healy.
Aye.
Item 15.
Consent agenda items A through E.
Motion to approve the consent agenda items A through E.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
And Healy.
Aye.
Item 16.
Claims, A, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment in the amount of $24,589.94 to Miller Trucking and Excavating of Silvis for an emergency water main repair on 6th Avenue and 21st Street. B, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment 1 and 2 in the amount of $328,022.33 to General Constructors of Davenport for construction services on the Schwiebert Park Marina Dock renovations project.
Move to approve claim items A and B.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Due to the nature of my employment, I need to recuse myself.
Where are we at on those docks? I mean, what is it?
At Schwiebert?
Yeah,
They were down
at
there working
Schwiebert.
here last week or so.
They're very close.
Halfway?
They're very close.
Okay.
I don't, they'll be done this year.
Okay.
That's the best timeline I can give you.
And not hit by ice?
I want at least they'll be on video getting hit by ice this time.
I swear there was a barge, but
No, there's
yeah.
been quite a few delays in getting materials for the project.
Oh, I figured, so.
But-
I
I just
think
want to
so.
know, since this is about half of the money allocated, correct?
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
just want to know, are they about halfway done with it?
No, we're almost done here.
Perfect, thank you.
We had a previous oh no, this is 1 and 2. But yeah, they're almost done.
Fair, thank you.
Do we have video on those docks now?
Yes.
There is video. It's motion activated. No, it's.
Oh, great.
Tim can maybe-
Will an iceberg activate it?
So, fortunately, we didn't catch it last go around, but.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Roll call.
I already did roll call, didn't I?
No.
No,
I
we
a
had
question.
discussion.
Okay. Alderperson Robinson, I'm sorry. Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Item 17.
Report from the Fire Department regarding purchase and installation of 4 outdoor warning sirens, recommending the bid be awarded to Federal Signal of University Park, Illinois, in the amount of $58,771, and requesting ARPA funds be used for the purchase.
Approve the purchase as recommended and authorize $58,771 of ARPA funds for the purchase.
Second.
Moved to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
And Healy.
Aye.
Item 18.
Report from the Information Technology Department regarding the Unite Private Networks Conduit Use Agreement.
Move to approve the agreement as recommended and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement with minor attorney modifications.
Second.
Moved to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hertz.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Keeley.
Aye.
Item 19.
Report from the Human Resources Department regarding a recommendation from USI to renew the self-insurance package with IPMG in the amount of $688,100, as well as a brokerage payment to USI in the amount of $25,000.
Move to approve the self-insurance package as recommended and approve payments to IPMG and USI.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hertz.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
And Healy.
Aye.
Item 20.
Report from the Martin Luther King Center regarding payment in the amount of $50,000 to Youth Hope for contracted youth services, $25,000 to Every Child, and $40,000 to the YWCA of the Quad Cities for the Restore, Reinvest, and Renew grant, for a total not to exceed $115,000.
Motion to approve the payment as recommended, not to exceed $115,000.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hertz.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Item 21.
Report from the Legal Department regarding amendments to Article 6, Division 5, Human Rights Commission Ordinance, first reading.
Move to approve the amendments as recommended and consider the ordinance.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, I have some data I would like to share with council that was provided to me by the Human Rights Commission. So for the last 7 years, they had a total of 40 complaints. Only 2 of those 40, or 5% over the 7 years, they felt they needed subpoena power. 45% of the complaints were either referred to the Illinois Human Rights Commission or they were dropped by the complainant. 30% of the complaints were dropped for lack of evidence, and 28% were actually mediated by the Human Rights Commission. Now, typically in the past, when we have changes in ordinance come, like we have the opportunity for it to be brought back in a study session where we can have a discussion about what's in the ordinance. This went from a 1-page ordinance for the current ordinance to 35 pages, and it's been through several revisions, but we've not had any detailed discussion about these revisions. Dave, I have some questions for you. Do you know anything about, where's Dave?
Yeah, I'm here at the podium. I figured that way I can record me more easily.
Okay.
And I'm going to have Hector join me as well.
So, did you find out? So, how many other communities have subpoena power? Do you know?
A number I cannot tell you. I know that Hector and I looked into it, and there are a number of human rights commissions that do, in fact, have subpoena power. I can't give you an exact number as far as in the state of Illinois or nationally.
I would say,
No, I mean in the Quad Cities.
I would say, Alderperson Gilbert, that within the state of Illinois, essentially every similarly sized municipality has a human rights commission with subpoena powers.
Well,
Moline does not.
Davenport does. Right.
Davenport
Essentially
does,
every.
Bettendorf
Not
does.
absolutely every, essentially every.
When I was in Galesburg, they had subpoena power.
okay, so another question I have, Dave, did you review the minutes of the current year and their use of going into a closed session?
I was asked to look at that issue approximately a week ago, I believe. So the answer to that would be yes.
And
There was a exception that was noted for going into closed session. I've got my notes sitting in my chair. I'll be right back.
Well, I can speak to that. I've got a draft letter from the city clerk about that for exception 20 regarding the state, was it the award board?
That is correct, yes.
Yes.
We're still looking into it, correct?
Yeah, and I believe that when I took a look at it, that's the first time I'd ever seen that exception noted, but we are, I've been talking with the clerk, and we are addressing that. We've also spoke with IML regarding that as well.
Okay. And so when will you be able to report back?
Well, I think that I could not find how that exception would fit, I guess, is my personal opinion after taking a look at it. But I think that the manner in which we are going to, it was suggested by ML that we could address it would be through contact by the Open Meeting Act's officer, which would be the clerk, via letter.
Yes, that was the suggestion of Mr. Cole when I spoke with him. Yes. It was just a letter to the commission, just letting them know.
So should those minutes or that audio become public then?
I can't tell you, I don't know what the,
I suppose, sorry to interrupt, but I suppose somebody could make a complaint to the public access counselor,
Yes.
and a judge will determine whether it should be public or not.
That would be-
That's a pithier answer than I was going to give, but it's the substance.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's kind of two questions. Was it the right exception, and was the subject that they went into executive session covered by something?
right, that would be the question that, and without knowing what was said in that session, it's impossible to know what was talked about, and it was impossible to know what the nature might be of the, how it might apply to the exception. So that would be, as Alderman Parker pointed out, that would be a possible resolution or avenue that somebody might take. And that's, I guess, all I can say.
So, Dave,
Yeah.
I have another question.
Sure.
So, in the amended ordinance, it says that the commission members would appoint the hearing officer.
That is correct. And once again, we're, I believe that that was a request, and I'm not sure where that request came from, but that would be a policy decision whether or not you wish to have that be in or not to have that be in. But that is essentially the way every other ordinance similar to this, that's the way that the hearing officer is chosen. And I think that Hector and I were discussing this earlier this evening. Basically, they, just as like the executive branch chooses the federal judges and so forth, in this instance, the commissions generally are the parties that choose the hearing officer. It would be an independent individual. It wouldn't be somebody on the commission. It would be someone who, oftentimes they're a retired judge or a lawyer, those types of things. But I would say that that is the general practice as far as I'm aware. And Hector, if you want to add more.
Yeah, and I guess I would add that for essentially every administrative agency that I'm aware of in the state of Illinois, whether it's a state or municipal agency, the administrative hearings are conducted by a hearing officer appointed by the agency, whether that's the State Board of Education appointing impartial hearing officers to hear proceedings under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, whether it's the Workers' Compensation Commission appointing administrative law judges to decide workers' compensation cases, the Department of Transportation has hearing officers that decide driver's license issues that are appointed by the DOT, and the list extends to every administrative adjudication that happens in the state. And frankly, those administrative adjudications outnumber actual courtroom civil litigation overwhelmingly. So that's generally how it's done.
I mean, ultimately, that is a policy decision, yeah, but that is how it was drafted based on the samples that we had been using, or we had seen, and based on the facts that Hector just explained.
So, since you as our city attorneys drafted the ordinance, is there any protection in there for if a frivolous complaint is filed against a business?
There's no way to guarantee that someone would not file suit against the commission. I mean, you can file a lawsuit for virtually any reason, whether it would have any merit. I think that from the procedural standpoint, we've tried to include, and I think we have included everything to put the safeguards in and make our ordinance compliant with the requirements of both federal and state law. But I certainly cannot stand up here and say there's no guarantee, that there's a guarantee.
I'm not, I think there's two possible questions that I understand you to be asking, and I'm not sure which one it is. If you're asking about someone filing an action directly against the commission, I think that's the question Dave just answered. And, and there's rules that apply to all civil litigation having to do with frivolous lawsuits and lawyers' signatures and sanctions and so on and so forth. If the question is, can people file frivolous civil rights complaints, the answer to can people file something is virtually always yes. But the way the process works as proposed in the ordinance is that there would be a determination of probable cause. In other words, it's not just a complaint that goes straight to an administrative hearing. It's a complaint that's investigated to find out whether it has any merit. And that would be undertaken by the commission investigators to decide whether there's probable cause to believe that maybe a civil rights violation occurred.
Okay, well, yeah, and over the last 7 years, 30% of the complaints did not go any further because of lack of evidence.
Right, and
only
that's how the process is supposed to work, yeah.
Yeah, and only 2 out of the 40 complaints over 7 years, or 5%, is what the commission said they would want subpoena power for.
The state does everything that this commission is asking, correct?
The state, the Illinois Department of Human Rights has jurisdiction to address all the things that the Rock Island Human Rights Commission is looking to assert jurisdiction over.
So I see we have 30 commissions and boards and committees. Out of the 30, how many have subpoena power?
I don't know. I don't have the faintest idea. I don't know how many are tasked with adjudicating complaints either.
So let's look at the Liquor Commission. The mayor's the head of the Liquor Commission. Does he have subpoena power?
Yeah. He can seek administrative subpoenas. Yeah, code enforcement. Yeah, the municipal courts would have subpoena powers. So yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, if you're adjudicating a dispute, which the liquor commissioner does, which the municipal code enforcement process does, subpoena power is a necessary appurtenance to that process. So I guess whichever commissions adjudicate disputes.
So,
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. A question for the mayor. Have you ever used subpoena power for the Liquor Commission?
I have not. Didn't know I had the ability, but I don't think there's been a need. I don't think there's been a need, so, nope.
But just having the power can compel people to cooperate, right?
Yeah, I think we're kind of measuring apple to oranges with that, though. I mean,
I have a quick question. So one of the revisions includes increasing the membership from 12 to 13 members. Is it my correct assumption that the 13th member is the hearing officer?
No. No, the hearing officer would be independent of the commission.
Okay, so what is, I guess my other question then, what is the need, what's the need from going from 12 to 13?
There were discussions about the Open Meetings Act and how it would relate to investigators looking into complaints of discrimination. And at some point, there would be the probable cause determination is made by a subset of the commission. In order to avoid having a majority of a quorum make that probable cause determination and therefore require it to be a public meeting, the membership was increased to 13.
Okay, second follow-up question to that. So it's also my understanding, looking at section 2-271, letter D. So this is just to clarify, that 13th position is one that will be appointed by the mayor and then present to the council for approval?
Just like every other commission member.
Okay.
And I guess I just want to weigh in a little bit here. I mean, I kind of feel like this commission, I mean, there's smart people on this commission. They're appointed by the mayor, so, I mean, they're people that want to do good on this commission. My assumption and my personal belief is they want to be taken seriously. They want to be respected. They're going to be responsible. So I don't think in the community, this commission is going to go on frivolous pursuits of stuff, because if you are investigating a complaint, ideally you want people to comply with your request and not have to go down a legal route for a subpoena. And if, from what I'm picking up, if there's a lot of subpoenas going out, if there's a lot of, back and forth going on, that's not going to necessarily lead to a human rights commission in which if we ask you for something, that you're going to give it to us simply because we've asked and we have your trust in this community that we're asking for a legitimate reason. And I guess I personally feel that I don't think our Human Rights Commission is going to go off kilter. I don't think that they're going to ask for unreasonable things. And I think that the intent of the body is to gain the confidence and the respect of the community, so that if we ask you for something because a complaint has been filed, you're going to give it to us because you respect us, you believe that we are doing the right thing, but also with the knowledge that if you don't comply with it, we are going to go ahead and issue a subpoena, but that's not the course that we initially want to take. I mean, you want people to comply with your request simply because it's a body that has gained respect in the community and is valued in the community. And I guess I don't see the Human Rights Commission not upholding that value and that viewpoint, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the members of the Human Rights Commission for pushing the city on this and for the work that you do every day, right? That's why we're all here. That's why you're here. Thanks to our staff for diligently researching this and presenting an ordinance to the council. And thanks to my colleagues on the city council for diligently considering the ordinance. Call the question?
Done with, Judith, did you have any other questions?
No.
Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Nay.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Healy.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Item 22.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding a recommendation to approve the Downtown Special Services Area, SSA, and establish the ordinance first reading.
I move to consider the ordinance with an amended special service area boundary, the amendment being the removal of the following parcels: 1431 6th Avenue, PIN 0735128019, 1501 6th Avenue, PIN 0735129006, 1509 6th Avenue, PIN 07351290007, and 1511 6th Avenue, pin 0735-129008, and 1900 6th Avenue, pin 0735-424-001, and amend Section 3 of the ordinance to, the services to be provided shall include but are not limited to the installation and maintenance of street furniture, signage, flower beds, and planters, decorative lighting, holiday decorations, event planning, marketing and branding services, and any other activities generally consistent with place management aimed at improvement of the downtown area.
Second.
Any discussion?
I got a couple questions, Miles. So with this ordinance, do we control what services are provided within this SSA?
Correct, because that would be, if you approve a service agreement with a third party, what you dictate in that service agreement.
Okay.
So the way that the ordinance has been written is just to broadly say all the theoretical services that the SSA could help pay for.
What do we consider downtown?
Traditionally, our planning documents have cast a pretty broad definition of what the downtown is. Tim, could you open up the map that is included with this report? Might help just to kind of look at things. You may need to rotate it as well. There we go. Are you able to rotate that 90 degrees? Cool. So, just as a recap for folks who've been kind of wondering about this boundary, for the most part, is following sort of two other boundaries. One of them is the former boundary of the downtown TIF, which is no longer active, though we still are using some funds out of it. The other thing that it's following is our zoning districts, okay? There's two zoning districts primarily in here. One is the central business district and one is a community business district. So this kind of extends out to encompass both. Now, in our planning documents, the definitions of downtown do vary slightly over the year, but they are, generally speaking, nearly approximately this boundary as well. Our planning documents, however, reflect that there are kind of different areas of the downtown, sort of reflected as an intense core where it's the most urban and the most dense, an intermediary area, kind of transitioning from that, and then a peripheral area, okay, before it transitions out into some of the adjacent residential areas, which are zoned residential primarily. So the definition of the downtown, to some extent, is a question of what is physically present. It is somewhat a question of the zoning districts. It is somewhat a question of what tools the council has in the past approved that were focused on the downtown. The TIF district is an example of that. It's also a kind of cultural and historic definition. Obviously, with time, all of what you see there has changed. It's somewhat similar to asking what is or is not an industrial area in the first ward. What has been there on the ground has changed over time. Where there used to be a business district, there no longer is. Where there used to be a factory, there no longer is. It changes. But broadly speaking, the currently adopted plans of the city have a rough boundary of the downtown that aligns with what you see here.
So hearing the services that may be included and seeing the map of what we consider downtown, this is where I have the issue with. I don't see how signage, flower beds, planters is going to benefit anyone on that western edge of this boundary. And I don't know if there's a plan in place that we are going to, specify or designate what is actually kind of going to happen within this area. Because I'm pretty sure you talk to any resident, downtown consists of maybe 4 or 5 blocks. That's what they consider downtown. They don't understand this depiction of downtown. So to get them to buy into these type of services, window washing, how are we going to wash windows on those businesses that are located on the outer edge when they don't have any windows to be washed? So those type of questions. I'm very leery with that because it just seems like we're not really looking at the true nature of what we're trying to accomplish. I don't see how, if we promote businesses and activities and events in what we consider, most of the city of Rock Island considers downtown, how is that going to benefit those outer entities? Have we thought about that? How is that going to benefit them when they're paying this extra money to improve the downtown, which now they are geographically located in? How is it going to improve their business?
So again, those kinds of questions would be answered by the council through negotiation of the service agreement, where the provision of any of those specific services, which are just listed to encompass everything in that ordinance, would be spelled out.
Where are we on those negotiations?
So the city manager and I have been working on drafting an agreement that would provide a framework for that working relationship that has been proposed with the chamber. It would likely be very similar in basic structure to our arrangement with other partners like Dari, where a work plan would be created for the council to review, and it would have a corresponding budget. The council would then be able to approve exactly what was being done and then what was being afforded funding-wise to those different activities. I don't know if you'd like to add anything.
An agreement would outline the process for deciding what services were ultimately provided. The definition that's included in the ordinance is fairly expansive to allow flexibility to do a variety of things. But the ideal would be that a governing body or a body made up of businesses and perhaps residents would make recommendations regarding what those services would be.
I guess I would feel comfortable if we did not list these things, because then listing these things, that's what people are going to hold us to. And if that's that's not the true intention of it, and we're waiting on this governing body to really determine those services, I don't even think we should be listing these stuff. So will we receive those, some kind of outline before the second draft comes up, or is that going to be after the fact?
The challenge is in the ordinance, you have to specify what services you're going to provide. Dave, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
You do have to specify what the services are that are going to be provided, and you also have to specify the area that it covers, and so those things have to be in there.
So why are we saying may? Because I know what may means.
Because it would be may include, in other words, the things that it can include or would include, and my understanding from what Miles has said is that not every location would get the exact same, may get the exact same services.
Because those things, as the city manager has explained, have not yet been determined.
So why did we make that critical change from shall provide these services pretty much equitably to may, and in your memo, it's saying, you may get this service, you may not get this service, when everybody's paying the same tax. So how do you justify this? And this comes after we've had all the public hearings. And now you're saying, I've had complaints from residents like, well, what good is it going to get me? I asked, what am I going to get as a resident? Well, maybe you'll get a banner. Well, what did you? Can I also have access to the facade money? Well, no, probably not. So, and who's going to be making those decisions of who gets what? It's like you're making this SSA as large as possible to get the most money, but now you're going to pick and choose who's getting services. Whereas before, the initiating ordinance clearly said shall, which means it would be on an equitable basis. This doesn't do anything for all the residents that have to pay for this.
I think with respect to the shall and may discussion, it's similar. May I make an analogy between the city's contract with Dari, for example, where we contract with Dari for economic development services like the facade grant, and we cannot say that as a part of that contract, Dari shall give facade grants to every business in Rock Island, because there's a limited budget and some people don't have projects in the hopper that are applicable to it and things like that. It's may, because for the business owners that are interested in that program that DARI has, they may apply for it, and there's a process to be selected for that grant. And so I hear what you're saying, Alderperson Gilbert, but I think you're adding a little more facetiousness to what it actually is, where these are the things that this organization could provide. The general scope, similar to our contract with DARI, the general scope where, the housing programs, well, they have Live Work Rock Island, for example. Does that mean every single citizen in the city of Rock Island should get Live Work Rock Island?
Alderman Parker, I respectfully disagree, because the property owners aren't paying DARI to provide services. They are paying an SSA tax, and now it's been changed to say you shall get these services. You may get these services, and Miles said in the accompanying memo, the only thing you're guaranteed is marketing and branding. And yet everyone is expected to pay the same 1.15% tax.
Well, the funding for the city's contract with DARI comes from taxpayers. So, in effect, every single one of us that pay property tax pay a very small portion of that contract with DARI, right? I have a legal question, I suppose, or a point of order with Robert's Rules of Order. So this has been a motion to consider the ordinance with an amendment. If it fails, is there an opportunity to, this evening, like right after that ordinance failing, is there an opportunity to present another ordinance with a amended boundary? Or if it fails, is that it? Like the amendment is the question. Or do we have to amend the amendment?
I think if it fails, then you could consider another amended ordinance. But there would have to be if you had a failure of the first, I think you could make a motion for the ordinance as proposed or with the amendment.
Okay, just so that everyone is clear, the motion that has been presented by Alderperson Gilbert includes properties that were not discussed by any of us prior to right now.
One property.
That's correct.
Who asked to be removed.
Well, did they participate in the public hearing portion? Did they participate in the process that was?
I believe they found out too late.
It was.
The owner did put his, whether he was in support or, I'm assuming it was not support, I just remember the name for that, for the
It was on the comments on the
comments,
city's
yeah,
website.
sorry, I lost, yeah.
Correct. The property owner commented on the city's poll online that they did not support the SSA. That's not the same thing as a request to be excluded from the boundary. For somebody, frankly, who has been for months accusing me of backdoor deals and nonsense, to at this hour throw this up here, I'm pretty insulted by this behavior. I think all of my constituents that are here tonight who have sat through months of slugging out over this are insulted, and I respectfully request you to withdraw your proposal.
So this is a residential property, a senior citizen development. The owner pays $185,000 in property taxes, and the SSA would add $20,000 in taxes. His property will not benefit at all from the SSA tax. It doesn't affect the contiguousness of the SSA. He sent a letter that was forwarded, I believe, to you, Alderman Parker, and somehow I got a copy of it. But no one bothered to even answer the gentleman with his concerns, questions.
I mean, I have spoken with Carmichael, I believe is his name. I've spoken with him on the phone about it, and he has had meetings with people about the proposal.
Was he for it or against it?
He was opposed, and that's fine. Obviously, not every single property owner in downtown Rock Island is in support of it.
Absolutely.
Did he speak with Jack?
Yes?
Could Jack come up and address that, or no?
I mean,
They're also just, excuse me, I'm sorry. Also, when they talk about they're not gonna get any services or everything, you know, whatever it was gets, not everybody's gonna get the same. But that doesn't mean they won't get some benefit out of the SSA. Whether it's the, someone coming around and making sure that it's cleaned up, as an example. Whether it may be an ambassador walking down there, don't know. Those things are still to be determined, but it doesn't mean they would get nothing. There could be something that this group, the board decides, and/or the city council decides, should be done in every single area. Or if it's not done this year, it may be done year 5, year 4, because you can't do everything the same year, all in 1 year. It takes time to put it together and build some funds, and you take care of a couple blocks at a time each year, or whatever it is. And so just because somebody doesn't get the services day one that everybody gets, doesn't mean they should be drawn out.
I'm gonna mention what one of our residents mentioned in public comment, MetroNet. I'm pretty sure MetroNet was proposed the same way. Everyone can't get it at this time, but eventually we're gonna come back and we'll include those areas that we excluded. I'm too leery of that because now we're in how many years with MetroNet and we're still to this point.
That
where
wasn't.
People are not getting, they're not getting services.
Yeah.
So I'm leery about this language. This is what's scaring me about this ordinance, this language. We're including properties and they're paying in taxes, but this language says they may get services. I just don't see how you can convince me those on this outline outside of this geographical area that the city of Rock Island residents think is downtown is going to benefit from this SSA. That's my problem. That's the only problem I have with this.
Improvement in downtown, improvement on, I hate to say how many blocks, we'll take 4, 5, 6 blocks in the quote, heart of downtown, can have an effect on the outskirts of it, even if nothing physically takes place out there.
I can't believe that.
That whether it's safety, whether it's cleanliness, whether it's reputation, there is those benefits that you don't put a dollar and cents to, that's there. And so there could be an ancillary. If your neighbor cleans his property up, it can help the value of yours.
Any of the taxes raised within the district have to be spent within the district for the benefit of the district. We can't divert this money for some other purpose.
And I don't want to deviate.
I know that it's not going to be diverted. I'm just saying, me from this experience, and I haven't been on council long, I haven't really been involved in city government, but I've seen things happen just like this, where
But
this
MetroNet
is
your assumptions
established.
are wrong with MetroNet, and I don't want to go down that road now.
Oh, no, it's not, because I'm a recipient of it. I'm not
the
part of
reasoning.
that.
I will tell you, when MetroNet, so I just got MetroNet last year. When it was first proposed, we were told they were gonna do a first build, and within 2 years, it would be throughout the city. That's what we were told. Now, I know it got delayed because of COVID, because I just got mine last year, but I was gonna address that in other business, because I'm frustrated by the fact that MetroNet, in my opinion, has not lived up to their agreement with the city that within 2 years of them starting, that it would be available citywide. It was never supposed to be, this area is gonna get it, this area is never gonna get it, this area is gonna get it in 5 years. That was what we were told, is that within 2 years, and I get that it takes time to build it up.
Right.
But
Right.
We don't want to get distracted.
That's right, I agree, we don't want to get distracted with.
Alderperson Robinson, I have constituents on the eastern border of the proposed boundary who have voiced the same concerns as what you're describing for the western boundary, and frankly, the southern boundary too. I understand that, and what I have told those constituents is there's going to be a board of directors that will govern, the programming, the capital improvements, how does this money get spent, right? And that board of directors is what is being negotiated right now. How many, who's going to serve on it, et cetera. I would encourage you, just like I've encouraged my constituents on the eastern border, to find, let's find a way to have somebody from that part of the downtown on the board of directors, so they can be in the room where the budget is established, where the priorities are set, because I hear you loud and clear, and as the person who represents the downtown, as everyone thinks as being the downtown, I am enormously frustrated at how everyone thinks that the downtown is 2 square blocks, right? It ain't. That was the whole point of going back to 2020 with the mayor's task force on the downtown, was we need to expand how big downtown is. And that was frankly a very intentional reason of why we drew the boundary that we did, because of the acknowledgement that we need to do better at making downtown Rock Island actually downtown. I mean, go down Fifth Avenue, right? There's plenty of opportunities there that have been ignored for decades because of 2 square blocks in downtown. So I guess, I don't know if it assures you, but for what it's worth, I will do my part, Alderperson Robinson, to make sure that you have constituents in the First Ward who are included in this boundary in the room.
And I'm not speaking just, I mentioned 13th and I mentioned the western end, but I'm speaking on all of them. Like I said,
yeah.
From the people I talk to, and I'm pretty sure I can do a poll within the city, what do you consider downtown? It's not going to be this map. So they don't understand that concept. So again, I asked this question earlier, where are we with the negotiations, and will we have that information back before this comes back to us for a final vote?
We could, yeah. That would be my intent, would bring it back in at 12.
So tonight is the only night where we can delete property from the SSA map according to the state statute. And I don't believe my question was ever answered about why did we wait till now, till after all the public hearings, to change it from shall to may?
I think that, I'm going to be honest, I think that's a matter of semantics. Everybody may not want what is offered. If there's flower boxes, I may not want them in front of my house, and by saying that you shall have them, to me that implies you're going to stick it in front of my house whether I want it or not. So I'm offended by the fact that an additional property was added to this at the last minute. And I kind of feel like, and I respectfully say this, but I kind of feel like this has been done to purposefully have this fail, because everybody else's attempt at it is not, and I say that because I know Alderman Gilbert, you don't want this to pass. I know you don't want to have this. And I kind of feel that this motion that was made with this extra property put in here and all these exemptions, I kind of feel like it's maneuvering and not in good conscience.
Okay, so I've called up Mr. Carmichael's email, and after his first question, he discusses the boundary line. He asks, how can I remove my property, be removed from this SSA? Did any member of our staff give him that information?
Not that I'm aware of, but
As the staff person at the podium, I'll try to answer that. I believe approximately, at this point now, maybe a month or more ago, the property manager contacted me, I don't believe that's the owner, asking for general procedural information about the SSA process that he could pass along to his boss, the property owner. At that time, I provided that information, including the full timeline of events, the process that would be undertaken by the council, and what would be required to request any changes to the final ordinance. At that time, again, speaking to the property managers, they said that they would convey that information to the property owner. They could not say at that time, as the manager, whether they were in favor or not, because they were not the stakeholder in question. To my knowledge, at a later time, having conveyed that information, the property owner had a further conversation with Mr. Cullen and other members of the Downtown Steering Committee, where they asked for some additional information about how things would work. They were provided that information. At that point, the owner expressed that they did not wish to be in the SSA area. That was communicated, I believe, to council members through a letter. I believe Mr. Parker mentioned that you received that letter and were aware of that request. So that was expressed. What the city manager and I know is that we were contacted by another individual who explicitly asked to be taken out. We sent an email to the council to ask whether you were all in favor of that. That individual was here this evening during public comment and thanked you for your consideration of her request. A majority of you ahead of time indicated that you supported that request, in part, I believe, because of the relatively minor impact on the overall income to the SSA that would create. And so staff did prepare and give to all council members what the amended motion to reflect that majority view was. To my knowledge, and the city manager can correct me if this is not true, there was not a majority of council members who came together to request any other changes to the proposal. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Let me address that real
That's
quick,
where we
because
stand.
I was under the understanding that it was going to be discussed in this type of form. I asked this question when we were in the public comment, and I thought we were going to have the ability to talk back to the residents as they came. From what I understood, no, that wasn't the case. So I kept being told that we're going to have time to do it. We're going to have time to do it. I never was informed that when it's supposed to happen. Those discussions to change anything or to make amendments or.
So again, I want to just kind of give a recap in case anyone's watching this and wants to understand kind of where we're at. The whole of this process begins when the council approves that initiating ordinance and provides a proposal saying we're going to be looking at this, lays out what the boundary is, what the services to be rendered will be, and then what the levy amount is going to be. Once that's approved, there's a 60-day comment period. So at that point, we're all collecting the information from anybody who might be affected. Then there's the public hearings, where stakeholders are also able to voice concerns, their support, their opposition, requests for changes. During that period of feedback, both that 60-day comment and the public hearing, the council members are able to take that information and, if they wish for changes to be made, make that known to staff, who at this meeting are able to bring forward either an amended ordinance in some respect or provide some guidance on tweaks like the one that was provided following that email that the city manager sent out. So that has been how the process is. Now, obviously, at this stage, the conversation that you are referring to is happening, where colleagues here on the council are discussing what is or is not a desirable change.
Just a reminder so people know that if this motion fails, someone can make a new motion.
So, according to state statute, tonight is the only night to delete parcel from the SSA.
That is, I'm sorry. You are correct.
Here's where I come from as a business owner. Sorry, is that better?
That is better.
Sorry. Here's where I come from as a business owner down there. I am for the SSA, okay? I absolutely am. I will go to your point, though, Alderman Swanson, and say there is a big difference between shall and may. Let's look at my window washing. I pay $70 a month for window washing. I pay $1,500 a month or $1,500 a year for my snow removal. I'm going to pay an extra $4,300 a year towards this SSA. I just want to know what I'm going to get. I mean, do I expect Dexes to come clean my windows every 2 weeks like they do and like I pay for? No. But if I don't have to pay $1,500 to get my snow removed, I just want to know if that's going to happen. So that's where I say that. And as far as Coventry Apartments, we got an email. We're already getting the guy for $185,000, and he's on the very border of it for another 20 when he already said he wants out. That's why I personally seconded the motion. That's why. So, I mean, we are going to make people mad no matter how we do this. It is absolutely going to happen, okay? I think...
You're going to make people happy, too, but either way.
And that's what I was going to say. We are going to go, hopefully, I think the vote is for hope. It is to go down that path to take whatever boundaries we have and make it better. Make people want to come to the city. I mean, at midnight, I let people out of the Stern Center. They barely have some place to go right now. And I am letting 400 people, I'm going to let 775 people out Friday and Saturday night between the two nights. They're going to go to Steve's or they're going to go over to the Iowa side of the river. That doesn't help us, okay? I am for anything that will help that happen. It's just the nuts and bolts how it looks. And that's all.
And it takes everybody that we've identified to help put something in that pool to make that happen.
I would also just like to, if I may, say two things. First of all, I think that this has been a process which is very challenging, both for staff and elected officials to navigate. It's a complicated statute. It is hard to understand exactly how all the mechanics of it work. I think that between staff and the council, though, it has been a successful process on procedural grounds. These conversations, as Alderman Healy points out, are challenging. And there is no 51% of people who will all hold exactly the same view on every detail of the SSA and the subsequent service agreement to render these services in that area. The challenge of making the decision about what the ordinance under consideration tonight should say, and later on what that service agreement should detail, is on your shoulders. There is no one, simple majority view on these things. These conversations, though challenging, I think are very helpful. I think it's good that there is a divergence of opinions on these subjects. This is a good conversation to have. These are concerns that should be raised. I think that overall, this has been a successful process, even though at the end of the day, there is no pleasing every single elected official, every single possible stakeholder in the downtown.
I do want to say some things, and I say this, I lived in Section 8 housing for a while, and it's rent-controlled housing. Coventry Apartments is senior living, and it's Section 8. So while I understand the desire to not be included because he cannot, at this point this year, pass on any of his additional costs to his residents because it is rent-controlled. He can't do that without requesting from the government that he change it. So yes, the first year he will not be able to pass that along to his residents. But I can also say, because of where he is located, he will in subsequent years be able to increase his rent and be able to recoup some of the costs of the SSA. That's clearly going to happen because you can raise your rent. You just have to apply for it and explain why you're going to raise it. But because of where it's located, because it's a 62-plus housing development, those residents are going to benefit from any increase in the SSA. As older people, I can say that because I'm over 62. So as older people, they're going to benefit from the safety aspect. They're going to enjoy the fact that it's going to start to look nicer than it probably does now. So over the next 5 to 6 years, the benefits of what's happening in the downtown is going to be enjoyed, and those residents are going to benefit from it. And not in the first year, but in additional years, the owner of that apartment is going to be able to recoup the additional tax of the SSA. I don't know if anybody else understands what rent controlled is, but that's probably the biggest complaint, is I can't raise my rent on my residence starting in January to offset this. So, that's just my personal thing. I personally do not feel that they should be drawn out of the SSA because they are going to benefit, and as older residents of Rock Island, they are going to benefit greatly from the security and the additional beautification that's going to happen down there.
my least favorite part of this entire process has been having to look my own constituents that say, I don't want to be part of this, I don't like this, I don't see what's going to be in it for me, and say, I'm sorry you see that way, I'm going to do my best to make sure that it does benefit you, but I can't just carve you out, right? Because in as much as I am mindful of the constituents that I have that don't like this idea, from the very beginning, I've always been laser focused on the group of constituents of mine that have bravely stepped up to the plate and said, we are willing to do this. The folks back there that have been there for months, that have supported this for months and said, we want to change, we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. And if we whittle this down and Swiss cheese the SSA into whoever wants to do whatever, it is going to significantly decrease the ability to do the things that we all say that we want to get done. And while it is, like I said, other than perhaps like being publicly put on blast by people, that has been probably my least favorite part of this whole process. But it's not been fun to look at my constituents and say, I'm sorry, but this is going to be for the benefit of downtown Rock Island. And I guess I would ask my colleagues here at this table to keep an eye at the greater good here, to not allow one business owner or one individual who doesn't like the idea tank it for the, 75% of people who responded to public comment saying that they support the SSA, right? I mean, we got to keep our eye on the bigger picture.
Real quick, how many other, I'll say, taxes and fees and decisions do we make up here that affect everyone in the city that may not, and some of those may not like the decisions we make? I'll say pick on parks, but I want to grab an example, but they made a decision a long time ago to let some of it go to natural grass instead of mowing it. And not everybody that likes parks like that decision, but they're still paying the taxes that go to the parks. And you could take other examples for years that these councils and this council's made that not everybody's going to like, that somebody's paying for something that they don't take advantage of. They're paying a library fee and never use the library, never use it, but they're paying. And so what's the difference? It benefits the city as a whole, and that's what we're here for, is to benefit the city as a whole, not even just the downtown. This is to benefit the city as a whole.
Mayor,
I don't disagree with that. It's just how it goes about it. I think that's the whole semantic of this, and I don't think anyone knows how that's going to happen. You know, we have hope, but I don't think any of us knows.
In certain situations, you got to have a leap of faith in some areas.
I agree.
Every decision that this council makes cannot have, and should not even demand and ask for all the devils of the detail to be figured out before they make a decision.
But I think
It just isn't right to micromanage that way.
I think and this is me personally, from what I'm seeing in section 3, even if we just chop out the first 3 sentences and focus in on what the main things we're trying to accomplish: event planning, marketing, branding services. Because with me, it's the black and white that gets me. Because this is what I'm held to. You know, if we write this in here, this is what people are going to hold us to. That's my problem.
Not if you use the word may. It doesn't.
Even with May, why put it in there? I mean, focus on what we can control. Why even put signage? Knowing we're not going to put signage on some of these buildings.
Why do we have to have control? What's wrong with the council giving up some control? Come on,
I'm not
people,
saying,
the council cannot have control. Let's give the steering committee some control.
I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about some of the businesses who will never see signage. Some of the businesses who will never see furniture. That's
right.
what I'm talking about.
And that's the price that everybody pays.
Everyone doesn't
for the better
believe
of the
that.
community.
I'm just trying to help us move along. I'm just saying.
I respect that, Alderperson Robinson. And again, I would just encourage you to work with us to make sure that the business owners that you're concerned about are in the room.
I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing, because this is not the first time we've been in this situation where we say we may do something and it never happens. And then we're right back in the same situation. because I'm pretty sure there's been other downtown plans who listed, we may do this, we may do that, and it just doesn't happen. But I'm not I'm not opposed to it, so don't, anyone out there, anyone on this table, don't get that in your, oppression. I'm confused about, and I'm concerned about the wording, that's it. And that's why I want to make sure that I see the negotiations, whatever we are, wherever, before we come to this next step. I want to have that in my, my hand so I can read it and go from there, because that's a key piece.
I appreciate that, and I'll make sure that that's available December 12th.
Just to clarify, the chamber agreement won't answer every one of these questions. It'll design a process by which these decisions are made and who has the authority to do them. And by, approving the language may provide certain services, it gives you some latitude to do those. But I think one reason why you don't do it right now is ultimately you want input from the stakeholders. And that'll be a process of assigning a governing board.
And you're not going to get that until the end.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to call it?
Yeah, I would respectfully like to call the question for the motion that includes the properties that were provided by staff in addition to the last-minute addition by Alderperson Gilbert and the change from may to shall, may to shall.
And if I may, because I have the laser pointer, for those who are in the audience who are wondering which properties we're talking about, there's 4 here. There'd be like a little peninsula cut in.
Stop shaking.
So it's I know I'm shaking, sorry. That screen shakes a lot. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah.
That screen does.
I've been looking at it, now
Really
Good
So anyway, so there's a vacant lot, a small storage building, an abandoned house that is very likely to be demolished in the near future, and then a house, which is a nonconformity, it's zone business. The woman who spoke during public comment lives there. The additional property that's being discussed is the Coventry Apartments, which is this large property right there. So just for those who are watching here in the audience, those are the properties that this particular version is talking about.
I would ask that my colleagues vote no, and that we afterwards consider the ordinance that was provided to us.
Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
No.
Hurt.
Okay, I need clarification again. I'm getting the verbiage here. Is this, what are we voting
What they're
yes or
trying to
no
do
on?
is take out the Coventry, what Alderperson Gilbert added in, that was not part of this amendment that we were given.
The motion is to consider excluding Coventry Apartments as well as the other properties. So in other words, as the motion is made right now, if you were a yes vote, you would be asking to exclude Coventry as asked by Alderperson Gilbert.
It's also my understanding, Alderwoman Gilbert, if you can clarify for me whether or not that said your motion was may or shall?
She said may.
What?
I just wanted to clarify.
Are you asking the changes to section 3?
Yes, in section 3, you changed it from may to shall in the amendment that you proposed, correct?
That is correct, because it was a last-minute change after we had all these public hearings.
Correct. Thank you for the clarification.
All right. That's a no.
Gilbert?
Aye.
Swanson?
No.
Parker?
No.
Pulis?
No.
Healy?
I'll vote no.
Okay, motion fails.
Move to consider the ordinance with an amended special service area boundary, the amendment being the removal of the following 4 parcels: 1431 6th Avenue, pin 0735128019, 1501 6th Avenue, pin 0735129006, 1509 6th Avenue, pin 0735129007, and 1511 6th Avenue, pin 0735129008.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
I hope city staff does it right. I mean, I'm going to vote yes. All I ask is please do it right for everybody. I mean, I think this is one chance to get this right, or we are going to make a lot of people upset. And I've invested a lot of money in that building, and everyone sitting out there has as well. And I just want it done right, and that's all I care about. I think that's what Alderman Robinson was saying, that's what Alderman Swanson was saying, and also Alderman Parker. And as much as Judith is going in, I think she's doing it for the right reasons too. Genuinely, everyone here cares. And I think the dialogue and the discussion show that, because this is not being taken lightly, so.
And I would just like to implore whoever sets up the board or the group that it includes residents, includes business owners, both for and against it, so that everybody's voice is considered and heard.
Thank you for saying the people against as well. I mean, you need opposition. You can't have all yes people.
Dialogue.
Yep. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Oh, I have a question. So are we just voting on deleting those parcels, or are we voting on the establishment ordinance?
It was a motion to consider the ordinance with an amended special service area which excluded the 4 properties that staff brought to our attention.
Thank you, Alderman Parker. Well, why I support Ms. Dennison's being eliminated from the SSA, I can't vote to establish the SSA when people are not being listened to, so, nay.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Healy. Motion carries.
Item 23,
Report from the Finance Department regarding a budget adjustment for the Rock Island Fire Department, increasing the ARPA Fund 248 expenditure budget for CY 2022 by $58,771.
Motion to approve the budget adjustment is recommended.
Second.
did you second that?
Yep.
Sorry. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
And Healy.
Aye.
Item 24,
Report from the City Clerk's Office regarding the schedule of regular meeting dates for the Rock Island City Council calendar year 2023 pursuant to the Open Meetings Act.
Motion to approve the 2023 annual schedule of council meetings as recommended.
Second.
moved to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Item 25, other business.
I would like to make a comment to address. I know we've had some discussion on MetroNet tonight. And so I do live in southwest Rock Island. I know we do not have MetroNet out there. And it will not, I don't anticipate that anytime soon because unfortunately they have to run through Milan's, got to get theirs first before it'll continue on into southwest. So while I know they said all of Rock Island, it's really going to be dependent on what Milan does out there. So just want to clarify why Southwest doesn't.
So I got to
I'm
comment
not
on
sure
that.
they claimed that they were going to do all of Rock Island.
Well, that's not what was said earlier.
Oh, no, that's not what I was told.
If I could clarify.
Yes.
I don't know what they said, but their agreement,
That's right.
obligates them to provide within the purple area. And it does obligate them to provide outside of that area if 15 people per 1,200 square feet sign up for the service.
There is that provision.
But that's the question I asked a month ago. I've never gotten the data back of how do you figure that out? It's so many feet from a trunk.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you where the trunk is. So I don't know how many, I can get neighbors to sign up, but I don't know where the trunk is to get them to figure out if they're within that
I can
span.
get 15 people in Southwest, but until Milan decides they're going to do it,
Yeah.
there's no way it'll get out there.
I can't get them to fix sod in the lady's yard.
I've tried to get clarification for them on certain points related to that, but in general, their map shows where service is available.
Right.
So I would assume that if 15 people adjacent to that sign
Well,
up.
Only
then they would provide
issue
it.
I have with that is I had a couple of residents who are on that border of the purple line, and they've been given mixed communications from MetroNet. One saying that there's too many construction projects going on in the west end, that's why you can't get service. or not enough people are interested in the West End. That's why you can't get service. So that's why I initially came to you to try to figure out, talking to them directly, okay, what is the reason why we're not getting service? And what do we need to do in order to expand that? So we're getting mixed issues.
Can I make a possible solution or help with it? Is if you or somebody could get those that want it to sign a document that they want it with their address, give that to the city manager. The city manager then can communicate with MetroNet, with whether it's with more clout, whether it's with the contract in hand and everything else to show that, to get a square answer. Because once again, they could tell each one of the residents a different story.
Exactly.
And we don't know what they're saying. It's one of these.
Well,
Okay?
that's why I
And
suggested
so-
that we go to them, so we stop this,
Yeah.
and we can get some clear, concrete information from
Right.
them.
But if we
Because they
can
have
get
a
those-
website you can.
But if we can get those signatures and show that as, I'm just guessing,
Be
I'm
honest,
just,
I don't work for MetroNet.
I know.
If they want the business, then they need to specify what it takes in order for them to bring the business in.
Right.
I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not getting signatures for them.
Okay, that's.
I would think that, as the mayor suggested, just if we were exploring what the terms of the contract were and say, hey, we have these individuals, that would be one avenue. I'm not saying that, I'm suggesting that you have to do that, but I think that would be an avenue to say, we have these folks signed up. We think that they are within, or, we want you to determine whether they are within or not within that boundary. I think at least we would get an answer. Now, I don't know what that answer might be, but,
You guys are saying, but I'm telling you right now, there's enough people who are interested. MetroNet has to make the next step. That means they need to come off of whatever limitations they are putting and actually give us some concrete information of why we don't have service in the West End.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, no, I was just suggesting that would be one possible way to hopefully get an answer.
Right. I got you.
And just let you know, go ahead, Judith.
Well, I have a resident who's on the western edge of my ward, and he emailed the city manager. He's talked to the city manager, and about the excuses he's getting from MetroNet, why he can't have MetroNet. So I'm not sure what, my guy has already done that.
I would like to find out from MetroNet, is the issue that it's cost prohibitive to run the cable there? And if so, what would the cost be if, say, the city helped to pay to run their wherever their trunks or their lines there, so they're there? Because, I mean, they ran it on my street, and not everybody on my street bought into MetroNet. But it's like if the fiber cable is run there and it's available, then I would imagine those people who want it could get it. But is the issue the cost to even run it? And if so, can we explore how much would that cost to get it in?
I know there are communities that have subsidized service in certain areas. In other communities, MetroNet agrees to provide service to the entire community without any subsidization. I've been listening to the complaints of residents in the council and exploring these issues with MetroNet. I don't have a definitive answer at this point, but it's kind of an ongoing conversation, which, I'm not gonna give up on until we get some resolution. I think it's everybody's desire to have service everywhere. And look, Metro is a business. If they can get enough people within a certain density, they're gonna provide service,
The only reason I mentioned, and I didn't mean to be rude when I said I wasn't doing signatures. The only reason I say that
I didn't
because
take it that way.
I know some of the people who work for MetroNet,
Yeah, I do too.
and they go out and actually solicit, go house to house. Are you looking for service? And they give them a package. We'll sign up and we'll. So they have the opportunity to do that. There's a reason why they're not. That's the question I want to get answered.
I agree. And there could be somebody, once again, they're getting those, the salesperson's getting them, but someplace in the line is getting dropped.
Right.
And
Right.
very well. I gotta say that if we watch the press, at least in the press emails, Moline actually had to put it out for bid. Because, once again, MetroNet proposed to them, like Rock Island, like Davenport and everything else, we're not going into these areas unless there's volume there. Moline was sort of saying, no, we're not gonna sign an agreement with you unless you do the whole area. They said, we're not gonna do the whole area. So they put it out for bid, and they got several bids. No one said, we'll do the whole city, not a one. They came back with, we'll do the whole city at this cost. Don't quote me on the cost, because I don't know. but it was, Sarah might have written an article about it, but there was a cost to it, 100,000, I can't remember, it was a large number for the city would have to pay for them to do the whole city.
They're looking for the infrastructure. They know that cost is huge.
And so it's a cost issue. It's a business and it's a cost issue. It's not a matter of just having equal access or another option or whatever. And so somehow we need to get off this dead center and getting the right answer. And they may just be so swamped with so many new businesses that they sit there saying, even if we had your 5 blocks down there, we don't have time to get to it.
And I would love to hear that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get,
So
something like that.
who knows? It's getting dropped someplace.
Right. So I got another issue then. I mentioned this before. We still don't receive delivery services from places in the West End. I don't know how we handle this. I don't know who we need to talk to, but I know specifically there's businesses in Rock Island who do not, their cutoff is 11th Street, and put it like that.
By the way, the Arsenal doesn't get it either. Arsenal Island.
That's because of security. I used to work there, so that's the only reason why, because they used to. But for Rock Island, West End, I mean, Grubhub comes, whatever the other food service comes, but we don't have businesses who are here in Rock Island deliver to all. And again, I don't know the reason why. I know what happened back in the day, but that's been a long time. So I don't know who can address that with those businesses. I mean, I'll go, but I'm not really probably the person to talk because I might say the wrong thing. I'm just going to be honest.
And nothing wrong with that honesty. And of course, as a private business, you can't force anybody, but you can actually
But
try
they
to.
can give a reason. That's it. I'm just looking for a reason. So when people ask me, well, why can't I get this delivered? I have a reason for it. This is why.
I agree. I'm not sure who, once again, whether, if we make a list of them, and, I mean, I have no problem calling people. If you give me a list of, them, I'm more than glad to call and get an opinion.
I see.
Whether they give it, I don't know, but we'll ask. I have no problem calling.
Sounds good.
I've made a lot of other calls for the city.
I'll remind you in the morning. No.
That's fine.
Item 26.
All right. Any other things for the good of the cause? Not, we need item 26.
Closed session, 5 ILCS 122C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body.
Move to go into closed session for exceptions cited.
Second.
Move second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hurt.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Swanson. Parker.
Aye.
Pulis.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Now, in closed session, Tim,